Lanny Ford along with you here this morning. We'll go to our phone lines as we try to do each and every week, get our college football perspective, and pick up Bill Bender from Sporting News. Good morning to you, sir.
Hey, good morning, Lanny. How are you?
I'm good. First question I'll ask, aren't you glad we got a 12-team playoff this year, the way people are kind of the top ones are getting knocked off during the season?
I'm sorry, what was the back half of that question?
Aren't you glad we've got a 12-team playoff, the way some of the top teams are picking up losses?
Yeah, I think so. We don't have a dominant team this year, but we also have some messy situations. You look across the Big 12, the ACC, the SEC. We have a couple stories about the tiebreakers up at Sporting News right now where, it takes a doctorate to figure out some of that stuff. Like, who might end up in these conference championship games? And I don't know if it was us a couple weeks ago or, every other show, but I think the conference championship games have become somewhat obsolete. But yes. The SEC doesn't. The SEC doesn't feel that way. That's pretty clear. They have a lot vested in that game. It's really part of the fabric of that conference.
I guess the part that bothers me, though, Bill, is they're not divisions anymore either, are they?
They're not.
Big Ten is Big Ten divisions.
Nobody is.
Nobody is. So, how when you've got 47 teams in a conference, I'm making a joke there, but you got that many teams in a conference, I don't know how you pick the top two because you don't play like schedules.
Correct. Like, for example, in the ACC, as you get down the road here, Miami, SMU, and Clemson, they're all in the mix there, and none of them play each other.
Right.
So if you get to a point where they all have one loss in conference play, then Clemson would probably be the team left out because of this phrase that everybody's going to have to get to use the next few weeks is common opponent. Who is the common opponent? Who did they play? That is going to be really interesting to see because their common opponents between the three are Louisville and Louisville and Florida State. Mm-hmm. Well, Clemson lost to Louisville. The other two teams didn't, and that's going to be the difference.
Well, I thought championship games should went away a long time ago, and I understand the SEC, but the rest of the conferences, they're not very well followed. The ACC, unless they have it in Charlotte, and unless it's a team that you can drive to, you don't have much of a turnout. So, it's kind of like I don't like college tournaments in college basketball. I'd rather expand the big dance and work from that way because, if everybody doesn't do it and everybody's not in it, it just makes it a little tough and confusing, I think.
See, I'll disagree with you a little bit on basketball. I don't really care about the big conference tournaments because I already know who's in. I still, as a MAC guy, I love the MAC tournament because for the one bid leagues, I like it.
Yeah, I agree. I
still enjoy, and in some cases, and I've argued this to my buddies, it's not like an argument. This is a good debate because you have to have different opinions. But to me, the conference tournament week to me is more exciting than the first round. Believe it or not. I just love watching teams get in. So, but the value of the ACC basketball tournament, I think the ACC basketball tournament would be comparable to the SEC championship game in football. There's so much tradition and history that it would be really hard for people to let that go.
Let me give you my only drawback on the one-bid leagues. There have been, I don't know, numerous, but I can think of a couple where you've got a team that went all the way through the conference in a one-bid league but didn't win the tournament, and they didn't get to go.
Yeah, that's something, but that's an easy fix to me because instead of, I guess if NC State made that run last year based on winning their conference.
That's right.
They got hot. Now, Indiana State gets left off. That's the team that gets left off that has an amazing regular season, but just because they have one bad half against Drake. Now, football, it's different, though, because, now the only thing that could happen there is a risk that, especially in the ACC and the Big 12, there would be a little bit of a risk for a three-loss conference champion to get a bye. And I don't think that sits well with people.
Right. When you look at college football rankings, and we're talking Bill Bender, Sporting News, there's a lot of traditionalists that'll push back on an Oregon being at the top of the heap. but they're in a different conference now. Nobody can whine about being out there and walk the Pac-10, Pac-12, whatever it was. Now they're playing, I guess, like competition. But when you look at it, I don't have a problem with anybody that's in the top 12 right now. I don't see anybody else that maybe should be there that's not and that could change, and that would be SMU if, depending on how this championship game goes, at one loss. But the other 12 that's in there, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I mean, most of the field is fine.
And people will push back on BYU too.
Yeah, BYU's fine. They're 9-0. You know, if they were in the group of five, they would still be in. So I think one pushback is that, but they're 9-0. BYU's been taking a lot of crap this week, and I think my point about them is I don't care if you're winning close football games. Yeah, you might get caught, and then we'll account for it if you get caught, but they're winning.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can't penalize a team for being 9-0.
Right. I agree, and I'm glad that we've had the expansion that we've had. It's going to be an exciting time, and the other part I like about it, you got 4 byes, but those other 4 games, they're played on college campus. That's a great atmosphere to host a playoff game. Never happened at this level.
No, I'm excited to see it. It's one of those, definitely excited to see it. It'll add some of those arguments we've had that, like the SEC and SEC schools, perhaps Ole Miss will have to go to Penn State, or Indiana would have to go down to Tennessee for a playoff game. And I think those are the SEC and Big Ten matchups really excite me in terms of you get to see those. We don't get to see them enough in the regular season, so we do see them in bowl games, but now we're seeing them with everything on the line. And I still think the second round should be on campus, but that's another law in this thing. But I understand they want to keep these New Year's Day 6 bowls and all the money that they have in those bowls. And that was to be expected. This format wasn't going to be perfect.
No, but it's way better than what we had.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, more teams are involved. And I think I told somebody yesterday, I believe, like 27, by my count anyway, like 27 schools that could still get in the playoff.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got 3 weeks in the regular season left. Last year, that number was 4. We've probably been looking at like 11 schools.
Yeah.
Maybe 12. But that number has definitely shrunk, and that's a good thing.
Yeah. Got a question for you. You posted an article about it. Deion Sanders, do you think he goes on the market, or is he content to be at Colorado, or would somebody make a jump and pull him to the NFL?
I think you'll enjoy reading that article we put up today. We did like a alternate history as he chose Auburn.
Right.
How different it might have been, and had some fun with that, and it made it like, I like writing articles like that. But I mean, yeah, he's never, as I've been pointed out to several times, he's never not coached his kids.
Right.
I've actually, it's crazy. I coached a 5th grade team one year that my kid wasn't on. And one of my buddies asked me to help, and I said sure. And my son, I was coaching him on Mondays, and then so I actually haven't. But I understand that part, because for the most part, I've coached my kids too. So, but he's never not coached them. So that's why these NFL rumors are going to start. Right,
but you're going to have a fit. I mean, to me, the only fit that I would see is if Jerry broke the bank, took whatever it took to get Shador, and at the same time hired Deion, because I do not think Mike McCarthy will be back. I think there's going to be a head coaching vacancy there.
There will be. I'm pretty sure. I mean, this feels like the end of McCarthy. It's when I'm a Green Bay guy. This is what that feels like. They're going to end up firing him, and Deion would be in play. And Deion, to his credit, this year 2, and he's got them 7-2, and he's made it possible for a team with basically 2-star players. They've got other good players, but 2 superstars are carrying this team possibly into the playoffs. And the other part of that is they've got a schedule that's set up for success. I think we should have known this was coming, and probably I look back at that North Dakota State game. That's a really good North Dakota State team they beat. Mm-hmm. And we probably should have known this was coming. I know they got beat by Nebraska pretty good, and this weekend against Utah is going to be a test. But you got to give credit to Dion. He's done a great job.
I don't think anybody took him serious. I think they all thought it was just going to be about the hype, and he pulled in a bunch of players, and, that's how he straightened it out. But what he did was take full advantage of the rules that he had. And for me, from a former coaching standpoint, when he came into Colorado, you need to find somewhere else to go. You're not going to make it here. And sometimes, I hate to say it, but coaches don't want to do that. But I would rather have the honesty. And there was a reason that Colorado was so bad, because they just weren't doing well on the recruiting side. They didn't have the commitment from the kid. And Dion changed all that. But, is he another Jim Harbaugh? And a lot of emotions what carries him.
Oh, Jim Harbaugh's a genius.
Yes.
I was just texting with him with a buddy last night. I said, everybody focuses on the eccentricities of – it's a very great comparison there, Laney, because with Harbaugh we compare on all the weird things he says in press conferences. Right. The fact he's catching balls. But if you – I texted by. I said he changed the Chargers culture in about a half hour.
Yes,
and and the response I got back was, it's because he's a leader.
Yeah,
he's goofy, but he knows how to lead a group of men. And for all this talk about what he wears to press conferences and what he wears on the field, what he says. He has a presence, number one, like Harbaugh, and he has some old school sensibilities. He played in the 80s. Come on, man. You think Dion knows what he's doing, and there were bumps along the way. He doesn't do everything perfect. The coaching staff turnover, but whatever they're doing right now, it's working.
Where do you think the sleeper upset is this week? I can tell you one that worries me is Clemson going to Pittsburgh, because I still don't think they're quite right.
That'll be a tough game. It's been wet and rainy and muddy up here, and I live, Ohio's right by PA, so you're going to have a weather game there. And then Kansas BYU. Keep an eye on that one. Kansas has played really well the last 3 weeks, and they've got it going on. And but it is in Provo, and people will be watching Utah, Colorado pretty close because it kind of depends on where Utah's headspace is, though. After that loss to BYU last week, a game that they literally should have won.
Yeah. A couple other games that I think are going to be interesting. Of course, as a Clemson fan, I'm not a Gamecock fan, but Missouri at South Carolina, the problem is probably had to pull for the chickens, because I really don't like Eli Drinkwitz because of what he did to Appalachia.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's going to be a really good game. Missouri still technically in the hunt. South Carolina's still technically in the hunt, although 3 losses is going to be tough. This format, though, once we stretch to 14 or 16, a team like South Carolina becomes real dangerous. We look back at that Alabama game, and you're like, man, Alabama played terrible. I think it's more like, no, South Carolina's pretty good.
Yeah.
They had a dud. Who was it that blew them out? Was it Kentucky?
I believe that's correct.
They had a really bad game. But other than that, I always you talked about golf last week with me. I would say you get a mulligan in this format.
Yes.
You get one mulligan. And
especially if it happens early.
I guess like Miami, we're looking at them different. Yeah, that's a great point, because Miami, we're looking at them a little bit different because they use their mulligan in November.
That's right. Now, the other game that I think could be a trap game, and this will be a good one, great nightcap tonight, is Tennessee at Georgia. Georgia's 9.5-point favorite. I'm not sure.
I'm not either. But, Kirby, they've been unpredictable. Lanny, I can't give you a prediction on that one. I picked Georgia, but I'll just tell you straight up, I thought they would beat Alabama. They didn't. I thought they would lose to Texas. They didn't. And then I thought they would beat Ole Miss. So my read of Georgia is horrible. I've got all their big games wrong, and I think part of it is I'm so used to those guys winning those games.
That's right.
Like the Ole Miss game was so shocking to me, because I'm just it was like with Saban in Alabama. I think I've done our college football picks for 10 years. I think I picked against Alabama like one time.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing, you talk about this Tennessee-Georgia. Tennessee at 7, Georgia at 12. Tennessee for the last forever have been, really somebody that's not been a player.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and so Tennessee, they're winning with a different formula this year, which is I've been impressed by the defense. James Pierce, one of the best edge rushers in the country, done a fantastic job. Nico Yamaliava, it looks like I didn't read anything this morning yet. I don't know if he's playing or not, but Dylan Sampson's been a really good running back in the SEC. So they're winning with a different formula. It's grimy, it's not perfect, but I think win that game. And that series hasn't been competitive. They've lost the last 7 meetings by a lot of points.
Right. Well, the other thing, I compare it when you talk about these games, even though you do have some detail behind it, it's almost like golf. You don't write down how you get it in a hole. It's how you finish. And it's kind of the same way. But, Bill, I appreciate you taking the time every Friday for us, and look forward to next week. Maybe we'll have something else kind of surprising to pop up.
That will be. Thanks, Lanny.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it, buddy. That's Bill Bender, and Bill's with Sporting News. I appreciate him giving us a call every week, and we get to talk a little bit of college football. Of course, Bill can go in all different areas. That's not a problem for him to catch up wherever. All right, that's going to wrap it up. I'm going to head out of here if I get my music. There we go. That's better. Have a great weekend. Don't forget the boys will be in here tomorrow. First round high school playoffs get underway tonight. We'll have Maiden at Lincoln on WLON. All the games around, so make sure and tune in for that. Appreciate you joining me this morning. Maybe we'll get back to a regular schedule next week. In the meantime, have a good one. Have a good weekend.